when I said this dress was going to be done in 20 minutes? That was funny, wasn't it? Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. Do you know what? The last time I went into a thrift store, I thought it would be a really fun idea to find a dress that was completely unflattering on me and try to transform it into something that I would wear and love. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And what I found was a beautiful dress. Well, at least the fabric is beautiful, but it's so unflattering on me. You can see here in the before, it's like comically unflattering on me, but the fabric is beautiful, right? I think, and I'm not sure, but I think it's either an authentic or a replica of like a West African mud cloth where cotton is woven and then dyed using fermented mud and in these geometric patterns that have real cultural significance. So I want to pay due respect to the fabric, even if it's not an authentic mud cloth, if it's like just inspired by a mud cloth. I think it's really special for me to be able to do something to take this very unflattering dress and turn it into something that suits me a lot better. If you look online at mud cloth dresses, they're beautiful and they are super flattering, but this dress is not flattering on this body. So I think it's going to be kind of a fun challenge. So I'm glad you're here with me today. The first thing that obviously jumps out at the eye is those shoulder ruffles. So those have to go. And the very, very boxy fit. I don't want it to be tight. I don't want it to be fussy. I want to try to stay true to the spirit of the dress, but I would not be able to wear the dress as it is. And I don't really know anybody that would be able to wear the dress that's like the big shoulders, the wide body, the wider skirt. I just don't think that dress was going to get any love in the store as it was. The waist hits like a little bit low. It's a bit of a drop waist, which I've heard is quite in for this spring. So I'm going to work with that drop waist. Even though it's not very flattering, I'm going to try to just nip in the waist a little, not make it tight, but just give a little bit of shape. And then the length is kind of awkward on me, right? I'm going to try to find a way to make that skirt longer. I just did a whole video on making things longer, so I should be able to figure out a nice way to add some length to that dress where my addition looks like part of the design. So that's where I'm going with this one today. I hope that sounds good to you. So let's get busy. So it does have pockets. That's always a nice thing, but it's just so shapeless through the whole body. Like there is no body type that would look good in this. And it's not just that it's too big, it's just too shapeless. And where the waist is hitting me is like not flattering. This is what I feel like. I feel like when you're like 8 years old and your mom says, no, you have to wear that dress. You're going to your cousin's birthday party. Put that dress on. And you just feel like not yourself. This is just not me. So I'm going to start by removing these. And I think they'll come off easily. I think they're just sewn on top. So that alone makes the world a better place. Let's start with something easy. If nothing else good comes out of this video today, I want to introduce you to my new favorite little tool. Did you see that? I'll do that again. This is the best thing. I had this in my classroom and I loved it so much and I missed it when I was home. So I bought one for home too. So what it is, it lights up and it magnifies. It's such an awesome little thing. And of course it travels well because it folds up so small, just like that. This is the best thing. So I know I have to do some unpicking here and I can sit on the couch watching a movie in the dark and not bother anybody else in the room with my light because it's so little. I can kind of brace it against myself and use the magnifier. It really is such a lifesaver. I love this little thing. And so of course I'm putting a link in the description. And this is not sponsored. They didn't, like I have not been in touch with this company. It's called Precision Quilting Tools is the company, but it's just such an awesome little thing. So it's not cheap. It was about $30 Canadian on Amazon.ca, but it might be cheaper on Amazon.com. I'll leave the link for both in the description. You have to get this. If you do a lot of upcycling, that means you do a lot of unpicking. It's such a good thing. I'm also going to link in the description my favorite seam ripper. This Clover one is just so skinny here and fine and sharp. It's such a good one. So I'll link that too. I might already have that link up, but I will make sure it's up. So these bad boys are coming off. And I have to be careful that I don't make a hole because this part is going, but underneath is going to be like exposed. So I have to be careful. I don't make any holes. As soon as I can get a tail of thread, then that's my preferred way of removing the stitches, right? Grab a tail and pull so that even though I love this seam ripper, I want to use it as little as possible just because making a hole would really kind of complicate things. One down, one to go. Yay. With those two both gone, now I can put it back on and really see what I'm dealing with. So huge improvement already, right? Like it's almost okay now, but I was thinking this would be a bit more of a challenge than just removing 2 shoulder ruffles. I wish I could do something about the length. It's hitting not a very flattering spot. I even played around with taking one of the little shoulder pieces and pinning it to the front to see if I could. No, that did not work. But I'm still open to seeing if I can find another use for these. So what I'm gonna do now is take it off, pop it back on inside out, because that's the way I like to fit things, and it could end up being okay just like this. So inside out now, I can see that that darker strip is just a piece sewn to the outside. I like it though. I want to keep it. I think it gives a nice bit of definition. And also being inside out, I've learned that there's only 1 pocket. So that might be where I use the other fabric, is to turn this into 2 pockets. If I were to dart it down the front, the dart would pass right through that waist seam, which would end up just kind of looking like a little pleat, and maybe that's just fine. Better already. And then around the back, same idea. Always so fun to pin on your own back. I could also nip in the sides, but I don't want to be tight and I don't want to show off this area, right? I just want it to skim and be a little more flattering than a box. Oh my gosh, I feel so much more like me already. Even that drop waist, it's so much better if there's a bit of a shape above the drop waist. When it's just a box and a line and then a second bigger box, it's not good. But I think when it's like a little bit more of a flattering shape, then I think I can live with that, which I'm almost disappointed that this wasn't harder. I wanted like a little bit more of a challenge today, but I think it's actually pretty good. Now the next test, and you won't be able to witness this, but I'm gonna see if I can still pull it on and off over my head without a zipper opening. I hope so, because I don't really, we'll see. If I can get it off over my head, then this dress is gonna be done in like 20 minutes. It's all good. We'll see. Yes, it pulled off over my head without too much difficulty. But once I have these darts all sewn, it might be a little bit of a different story. You know, when it's just pinned, you've got some wiggle room in between the pins. Once you've sewn that, it can end up being tighter overall because there's no wiggle room between pins. Before I sew these, I want to just bring them together and make sure I've got them the same. So I just need to move my fold over. Okay. So the 2 front ones are the same, and then 2 darts on the back. Okay, a little bit of fussing around, trying to make them even, and then double checking like this. That's the center. I think we're good. Okay, so sewing these darts. If you're not comfortable with sewing a dart, it is probably better to start at the wide end and then come up to the point, but I think I'm just gonna start up here because that's where my pins are pointing. A lot of people will say don't do a back tack at the point of a dart. I do though. I like it. I prefer it. And I don't see a downside to it. So I do my tiny little back tack and then I'm just going to sew from pin to pin. And then I just ended with a back tack right at the seam. I'm keeping the seam allowance there going up because that's what it seems to want to do. Yeah, just a little nip in at the waist. So my pin is here. I'm going to start way up here so I can do a nice gradual blend to that pin. And a gradual blend back out to the original sewing line. And then the 2 front darts. Those first few stitches have to be right along the fold or else you get that funny bubble. And then a nice gradual blends in and back out. For the point of the dart, I always put my pin horizontal so I know that that is exactly where I want it to finish. Or I guess in this case, start. And then the last side seam. And then hopefully it still goes on and off over my head. Okay, I'll try it on again. Okay, pretty good, but then I'm just gonna tweak the fit a little bit more, but we're getting there. The back can come in a little bit more. And the dart can come up a little bit higher. Smidgy bit more in on the waist, and this time I'm going to take it right up to the top of that side seam. Okay, one last try on. Good news and bad news. I actually really like it now. I like the fit. I feel super comfortable in it. But now I just noticed this. Do you see that? Can you see what I'm looking at? I thought this was symmetrically set in, but it's not. That's my center. Oh, Lordy. Now I know this is just sewn on top. So what do I do about that? I could move it this way, but then this part is symmetrical, isn't it? No, it's not, right? Okay, this has to move over to there, doesn't it? So I'm gonna do that. I'll just try and do that as quick as I can. But I am really happy with the fit and the feel of it. It feels good, and it feels more or less like me. That drop waist has really grown on me. I think it's actually quite pretty. Still not 100% sure about the length. I would prefer 2 more inches in the length. But right now, I am very happy, except for this thing right there. Okay, so I removed that panel, and now I miss it. I think it kind of gave a nice definition. I think it is better with it, don't you think? So if I put it back on but centered, so that's my center. And even though I never like something that kind of just ends in a harsh line like that, I do want this to be something that I can throw on a casual day, like just to wear to work, or just like, I don't want it to be something fancy. So I really don't want to nip the waist in and put a zipper, and I just want it to be a casual summer dress because that 100% cotton just feels so nice. I think the drop waist and the looser around my actual waist makes it just, you know, a little less fussy. So this is going back on, and I'm going to put that other extra piece into the skirt, I think. So I just did a whole video on adding length. So I really should be able to figure this out. So I have this piece of linen, which is really nice, and I haven't known what to do with it. There's not a lot. I can't make a whole garment out of it. So then I took it to my machine and started playing with some of the embroidery stitches just to sort of make it look a little more connected. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I don't want to just put that on the bottom because it's going to look like I just stuck it on the bottom. What I'm going to do is cut off maybe 4 inches, put in a strip of this, and then put the piece that I took off back on. So let's just pretend that this ruffle is that piece. So it'll look like that, which I'm pretty okay with. So I tried this linen that I embroidered on the machine, and I love the way it looked, but it still sort of stood out and looked out of place. So I sewed it in and then took it out. Here's another thought. I went digging and I found some navy cotton. It looks really different through my camera. I can see this looks way brighter, but in the lighting, like when I'm just looking at it, not through the camera, it looks 99% the same. Like it's not as sharp a contrast, I promise you. So what I'm thinking is extending those 2 lines, that strong vertical line, extending it right down. So I'm going to tear a strip that's just about 1/2 inch wider than the strip that's here, like a 1/4 inch on each side. 2 strips like that. This just is glowing through my camera, but it really is not. It looks like a bright royal blue. I'll have to change the lighting so you believe me. 2 strips like that. And then I'll take this to the iron, turn under both edges until they are that same width. If I just measure, get the iron to hold one end and I pull the other, just pull it taut. And then that gives me a pretty straight little strip. The raw edge will be tucked under and I'll just be sewing down on the 2 sides. So what I want to do is extend this vertical all the way down because it was bugging me that it just stopped there. And to lengthen, I'm going to use the blue. But in the center panel here, I'm going to lengthen using one of those shoulder ruffles because I just want the strips to end there. Like the parts that I'm going to lengthen the skirt with, I want to maintain this vertical line all the way down to the bottom. So that's the current idea. Hopefully this one works. So the strips here can just sew on top, but underneath the bottom section, I'm going to do that lengthening for the center. So it's a little complicated around here. I'm going to keep these lines matching into those, but this is gathered. So this panel actually becomes wider than that panel, which I think is nice proportionally. I think that looks good. So I just have to kind of follow the pattern down to show me where this strip is going to go. So I tore 2 2-inch strips and 2 3-inch strips. So I'm going to start with the 2-inch strip, basically starting from that wax mark. So I'll make a seam at the center back. I'm going to be smart and use a basting stitch, which means I'm just increasing the stitch length to 5 so that if I don't like this one, I can also take it out much more easily. Okay, there's my notch. I'll stop just a 1/4 inch before that. Okay. Yes. Oh, that'll be great. Oh, I like that. Okay. So I have to cut this strip in half. Okay. So nicely evened up, folded in 4s, and nice and even. So that's 7 inches. Should I cut it equal or maybe 4 and 3? I think it kind of looks good when it gets bigger toward the bottom. So I'm going to go 4 and 3. Nice. And then I'm joining the ends of the navy strips together to make a full circle, even though I know I'm going to be cutting it at that center panel. And then I'm going to join the lower edge of this top piece. I'm being careful so I don't separate that side seam. I did serge mine, even though not everything on this dress is serged. I just had to serge it. In fact, for the rest of these seams, I think I will just serge around because I just got to get this dress done and I think this is going to work. So I'll serge around this circle. And yeah, I should have probably serged that little seam there too, but oh well. I had my chance and I blew it. That is the idea. And then this one right side together with my strip. Same thing. Okay, I think I finally have this figured out. This took a little bit of figuring. So these strips are ready to sew down on top to continue that vertical line. So what I've done, and this just, I don't know how, this just took all my brain power. And I just love the look of that. That's just so much better. I did like the linen, but it didn't work. I don't want to have these stripes like the horizontal going across that center panel. I want to continue the vertical. So I have to lengthen this part, like, you know, I have to compensate for there not being navy in this section. This is just one of the shoulder ruffles that I've cut down to just fit in that space. So I think this is going to work. It really did just take like all my brain power. I got this now. This is going to be good. This piece, this shoulder ruffle, is going to serge to the ends of those strips. And I want to make sure my seam allowance is staying the way I pressed it. Okay, and now I can finally serge around this one. That's the first one I did, and I didn't serge it because I just wasn't sure how all of this was going to come together. But then I finally saw it in the simplest terms of just doing that as a center panel to complete these strips. You see what I mean? It really is simple. I just couldn't see it before. So just all around this one. Then I just have to finish off this bottom edge here. That's gonna be fine like that. And then the rest of the sleeve ruffle can get cut off. Serge here, and then that's looking good. Alright, so the center panel is in. So these are my horizontal bands, and I snuck a seam in right there and right here. And I'm sure if you look close, you'll see that seam. But this vertical line is going to come down there now. And then that really does just draw your eye up and down. I really don't think you're going to notice those horizontal seams there. I love the look of this. So you can see, right, we're looking at the skirt sideways here. So this is horizontal on the skirt and this is the vertical. And I am super happy with how that's looking. I adore that. Phew, I think I finally arrived at the correct solution, or at a workable solution anyway. So now I'm going to be sewing on these just like really nice and close to both edges. And remember, this is just wrapped, so I've got like the raw edges under, and that just was really a nice easy way to make a long strip that's nice and even. Up at this end, I want them to blend into those lines, but there is a seam here, so I have to sew these strips on before I can reclose that seam. And I know that once I pick this up, this line is going to shift around, so I really want to get it like nicely pinned before I pick it up. Probably the more pins the better here. Okay, let's go. So right into the top edge of the seam here, like into the raw edge of that fabric. 2 inches in, and I've already gone off the edge once. Okay. Right down here at the bottom, I'm going to see if I can catch the edge on the back all in one go. So I'm folding it under once and twice and see if I can just do that all in one. And then back up the other side. And then the little bit that I went off the edge is right there. I'm just gonna fake that in. Okay, pretty good, pretty good. All right, same thing on the second strip. Okay, heavenly days, that is done, and I think it's super successful. I'm very, very happy. So now I'm going inside just to sew that waist seam back together. So here I want to match up those vertical lines just as even as I can. And then I'm going to try to center, like the center of this print here to the center of that panel. And then sew and serge that. This is that dart that I sewed in about 100 years ago. Let's take out a little bit of that dart. That was in the days of innocence that I sewed that dart in. That waist seam is done. I'm gonna check it from the outside, serge it, and then re-sew the ends of those darts. Oh, good thing I checked it. This I can almost live with. This I cannot live with. What the heck happened there? Okay, I'll try it with the other side up to see if I can get it to shift the other direction. I just removed like a few stitches on each side. Perseverance pays off at least half the time. Okay, I'm calling it. That is good enough. Serge that little bit and then replace my dart ends. That means the skirt part is done. The neckline now, I just need to put that back together. Okay, here's the neck facing. Very small seam allowance. I don't think I can get right into the ends because there's an understitch or a top stitch, but I'll also replace that. Yeah, just a little understitch. That'll do. Pockets, and then we're done. So I've opened up the pocket and it was all kind of just like that. So I'm going to just take this piece of muslin and use that for the front part of both pockets. Whatever you use for the front of a pocket is never the part that's going to show, but the back part can show. And you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to leave that on this front, sew this to the other, but then I'll use that other sleeve ruffle to cut a second pocket piece. And it almost fits, but not quite. Well, that is close enough. So that's the front. One of these will go to the back, and then the muslin part goes to the front. And I think I'm just gonna serge those on and then serge around the pocket, and then Bob will be your uncle. There's one. Now serging a little bit up the side seam and then around the pocket piece. The pocket pieces, both pieces together. Other side now, print one goes to the back piece. This is the original pocket, so that's already on. So now just the side seam around the pocket, and then I'll go down the side seam a little bit here because this one was never serged. I do believe I'm done. Oh my goodness. I honestly thought the day would never arrive. Okay, I honestly can't believe it's finally done. This was a marathon, but I really love it now. So the panel is centered. Those shoulder ruffles are gone. And even just doing that made a world of difference, right? And now the length, I love, and I love that vertical continues right down to it bridges the horizontal. It feels great. I can still pull it on over my head. I'm quite happy with the drop waist now. I think it's shaped enough that it's flattering. It's at least a lot more flattering than it was. But if I want to define the waist more, I just happen to have the most perfect belt where the gold buckle just is exactly the same as the center panel. Like, it's kind of perfect. So I could definitely wear it with the belt. Let me know in the comments if you think belt, no belt, what do you think? And it's got 2 pockets now, so that's kind of nice. But this was a challenge, I have to say. I wanted to pay respect to the fabric and to the cultural significance of what I believe to be mudcloth, or at least mudcloth inspired. But the way it's constructed does make me think it was not sewn in North America, so it could potentially be a genuine mudcloth dress. And so I definitely wanted to respect that and pay homage to it. So I hope I've done that. I definitely turned it into something that I will wear and love. And the way it was just not flattering for me at all. Like, it just wasn't, was it? It was not flattering. So look at the before and the after, and I really hope that you think that I've done this dress justice. So as always, I appreciate so much that you're actually watching the ending. That is amazing because that was a marathon. So thank you so much for watching and for being with me right to the end. I just love that so much. If this inspired you, go ahead and click subscribe. That means so much to me too. And until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.